Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say could make that any better.
Yeah, nobody. No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC and F1 podcast by Soccer Nerds. I am a soccer nerd. My name is André Carlisle, and I have three other soccer nerds with me. Deepti, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm nursing a black eye. But other than that, doing pretty okay.
Can you, I told, before we started recording, I was like, you can't just lead it that you have a black eye. You have to tell people,
Yes,
like, it's okay. I'm not in danger. Everything's
I
good.
said I'm okay.
She's fine. It was just some
know.
clumsiness, all right? She's good. She's good.
No,
We asked
I got
her
into a
to check.
fight with the McLaren pit crew. That's what happened.
You know
We
what?
were about to invade England this morning. When
We
found
really
out.
were in the group chat. We were all like, "Hey, man, we will buy tickets. Just give us a target." But I'm glad you're good, except for your eye, which is we're just gonna say it's a McLaren pit crew situation.
Exactly.
Donald, how are you?
I don't have a black eye, so I guess I'm doing much better. Soccer and football were fun this weekend for the most part, and I'm just going to say this right now: we will not forget about George on this episode because he put us in a position where we can't.
All I'm gonna say is I'm not gonna make that promise. We just might actually still forget about George, but we'll see. Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. I was going to say we might forget about George because George did so little. I think the broadcast forgot about George. Like he was that far ahead, and it was like, yeah, we don't care about that anymore.
I will say I forgot that he was leading the race for about 40 laps.
It was reminiscent of that year that Max Verstappen was winning every race by like 20 seconds. You just never saw him. They just didn't show him. It was just like, well, Max is going to win, whatever. We'll focus on other stuff. Which, okay, let's just get the gripe out from the top. What was up with like that broadcast? Because there were so many interesting things to happen, they just never showed it to us. Like, it was the most boring version of the race that actually happened, which wasn't that exciting anyway. But, like, signs on from P18 to P10, we saw none of that. Like, that on a track that's hard to overtake, we saw none of that. And then Lewis, at the end, when his brakes were gone, we didn't see any of that. Like, there were interesting things that happened. Why didn't they just show it to us?
Look, I have a personal gripe with this because I watched the race. I then went to the Spirit match. I then went to watch the Lions game. And it was like, and then I came back to watch the Tigers. I think it was 10 p.m. when I was like, wait a minute. Lewis Hamilton dropped to P8 because he had a 5-second penalty because we had no idea. Like in other races, you will see them spend 30 minutes over, Liam Lawson going against Franco Colapinto for 19th place. And you will see them go back and forth. But this race, which actually had a couple of things going on here outside of, George just being being gone, they had a lot of things that they could have discussed. Instead, we got a lot of focus on celebrities in the pit lane. I think we got some like reviews of random things that didn't really mean anything. Like, oh, he took this turn. Oscar took this turn very wide. Let's talk about that for 5 minutes. You're like, don't care about the turn. Really don't. I care about Papaya Rules going on right now. So like, yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with this. And Singapore is usually one of those races where a lot of things happen. So they should have been prepared for it. It rained, which, rarely does in Singapore. So we even had that element to start a race and we didn't really get any of those facts.
Yeah, I was going to say like, while like drivers are crossing the line and, Crofty's doing his whole like, build up to the crescendo of crossing the line and then everybody else comes in. I'm like tuning him out because I'm looking at the timing screen and I see that Lewis has like a 40-second head start or lead over over Fernando Alonso. Suddenly it's 38, then it's 32, then it's 22, and then it's like 15. And I'm like, show what's happening here. Clearly something is going on over here. Put it on the screen. You're killing me.
I will recommend to anyone who, even if you did watch this race, you guys, if you go on YouTube under the Formula One channel, they have the radio highlights, but during the radio highlights, they actually show way more of the race than what the broadcast did. And so that's like a way better recap than any of it because the good radio bits are when the excitement happens. And so they have to show it. And so you get a lot of the like Lewis stuff, you get a lot of Fernando Alonso's like one-liners that he puts in. And yeah, a lot more of the action. Like even Hajar had like the engine issues again. Like there were so many things happening and like behind the grid besides the top like 3-4 that they just didn't show. And so go watch the radio highlights.
It is wild that you got to go watch the radio highlights to get like the full TV product. That ain't how it's supposed to work, but okay, whatever. That I had to get that off my chest because it was just annoying. I was like, this race was kind of boring anyway, and then they showed the most boring version. I did not understand. But okay, let's talk about the race because we have a few things that we need to talk about. Somebody mentioned Papaya Rules, and that's absolutely where we're going to start. So to make sure we don't forget about George, he did win this race. It was an impressive thing. He won it basically with qualifying. Then he had a really good start. He held off Max Verstappen at the start, which I think Max got a pretty bad turn. But actually, kind of goes back to what you were saying, Donald. The rain, I think one side of the track was like messed up. Like he had no traction, no grip, no nothing, especially on those soft tires, which Max started on. So it looked like it was really easy to hold him off.
Everybody on the grid that lined up on Max's side
Yep.
all had like slower starts than people who lined up on the side that had George Russell. So, hey, George Russell actually kind of benefited from being first and also being in that that like lane that already had the racing line kind of dried out. And I will say this, it was very surprising to me how quickly he built that lead that he built. Like,
Yeah.
it was like 5 laps were like, okay, so unless he hits a wall here, like he's going to go wire to wire. And surely he did.
Yeah, that was very impressive. But okay, okay. I'm going to frame it real quick, and then I want to ask y'all one quick question, one-word answers, and then we'll do a discussion about it, because I think there's a lot to talk about with this Papaya Rules stuff. So, Lando, as you mentioned, Lando got a really good start because he was on the good side of the track. Oscar did not. Lando ends up jumping up a couple spots, gets ahead of Oscar, but not before running into the tap in the back of Max, which actually made him go a little bit squirrely and then go wheel to wheel and tap Oscar. And this was during one of, I think, what was it, turn 1? It was one of the first turns.
Like the third turn of the race.
Yeah, one of the first turns of the race. And Oscar was on the radio immediately like, hey, are we allowed to do that now? Like, what's going on with this? Like, I just got bumped by my teammate. And I'll be honest, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading about it, and most people are treating this like a non-issue. This does not feel like a non-issue to me. Like, Max wasn't complaining because Lando didn't pass him. If Lando would have passed him, Max would have absolutely been complaining. But he did pass Oscar. And so Oscar was complaining. So there's been this whole battle between like, who is McLaren favoring, Lando or Oscar? So I want each of you to answer with your guess, because it feels like it's a toss-up. So we'll start with Donald. Are they favoring Lando? Are they favoring Oscar? Or are they favoring no one?
They're favoring Lando.
Okay, Kyle.
It's been that way for 2 years.
Lando.
And Deepti?
Lando.
Yeah, I kind of feel that too. And we'll talk about why, because there was stuff at the beginning of the race and at the end of the race that feels like they were absolutely more prepared to celebrate with Lando. And we're like, oh, shit, where's Oscar?
I will say, like, as a parent, it's kind of funny if someone says, like, oh, who's your favorite child? Like, if you ask a parent that, most of the time they say, like, oh, I love both of my kids. That's also not completely true. There is one child you prefer. There's one child you want to deal with more than the other. For example, last week, Monday, I did not want to deal with my oldest child. He was driving me up a wall. But by Thursday, he was number one again. So that's the same thing with McLaren. They might say they don't have a favorite, but they definitely prefer to deal with Lando than they do with Oscar.
So you have the Deion Sanders son ranking system going on here.
Yeah.
Or I should say children ranking system.
It's like a power ranking, you know? All it takes is one bad week from one of them to fall all the way to the bottom.
I really hope they listen to the podcast, because
they know that. They can get an idea of which one I'm more happy with. When they both do the same dumb thing, my reactions are a little bit different.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know what? Thank you, because honestly, I've heard this from my mom all the time, and I'm like, hey, listen, all I'm going to say is circumstances make it seem like other things are going on right now, and it's never been like, it's always been ignored or denied, and I'm just like, I don't know. So thank you as an honest parent for letting us know that favoritism does exist. Yeah. It's not a figment of our imagination.
It might not be a permanent thing, but it definitely is temporary.
Okay, so let's talk about this incident. So This was obviously a pretty big deal. And when you're at Singapore, track position is kind of everything. We talked about George getting on pole, and that's really what he needed to build that lead, hang on to that lead, because actually in the race, he was not the fastest car. You know, he was not in the fastest car. There were other cars, like the McLarens were faster. When Lewis put on the soft tires before his brakes exploded, he was really fast. So, like, there are caveats, obviously, to this, but track position was super important. Lando got it by being aggressive, which is something we've wanted to see from Lando for a while, but it does come at the expense of, one, his teammate, and also wheel-to-wheel contact when, if we're talking about the battles between them, Lando has a pretty lengthy track record of hitting Oscar, and Oscar doesn't really have a track record of ever, like, hitting Lando. Yet, this seemed to be okay from McLaren's standpoint. So, Deepti, I want your thoughts on this situation. Just like the Papaya Rules, are they out of the window now? Like, how should Oscar feel given what happened?
Yeah, I get it. I think it all goes back to maybe not even like what happened last year when between like Papaya Rules, but Monza especially when they made Oscar, because Lando had the slow pit stop, they made Oscar give back the position, and since then, um, I feel like they try to make it right, and but they can't, and now you can really tell who they are favoring. Um, I also think like it is kind of, yeah, it is like a racing incident. It's at the start of the race. You always know like things are going to happen in lap one. And that's what the stewards also thought. And so, in a way, I think like the McLaren team was kind of off the hook for not having to make a decision there, because they're like, oh, well, the stewards didn't think anything of it, so we don't either, kind of thing. And so they just dug themselves into a hole with all the like Papaya Rules decisions they've made in the past. And so I get Oscar's frustration, and him just saying like, oh, that's not fair. Like if he has to avoid another driver by crashing into his teammate, he's not doing really well at avoiding, is like what he said. And yeah, so the whole time he was kind of fussy on the radio then after that, which I get, but also like I think this is just the smallest bit of everything that they've done, and it was just kind of the final like straw that broke the camel's back, or like the straw that made Oscar really angry because it's not the worst that they've done in terms of Papaya Rules. Like I think just that one, like the Monza incident, probably is the worst.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the thing that is wild is that they let the stewards kind of handle this one, where I don't think that's in the Papaya Rules. I thought the Papaya Rules were separate. If you're just letting the stewards handle it, then let the stewards handle it. But you have this whole section of rules that we don't know, we can't see. I don't know if they're written down. I don't know if they're emailed. I don't know if they're on a stone tablet. They're somewhere, but like if you don't need that, if you're just gonna say, "Hey, stewards are gonna deal with it. Y'all just race cleanly," and that's it. If you're not racing cleanly, the stewards are gonna punish you, and we're gonna back the punishment. Like they haven't said that. So, Kyle, your thoughts on this whole thing?
I think for me, it's not like I have no problem with what Lando did, because you want him to be aggressive. You want him to try and go for it. We want to see that dog, and he had that. I have no problem in that regards. I think my bigger issue is how many times when Oscar and Lando were battling and Oscar would nearly hit Lando and lock up, and McLaren was like, hey, you need to calm down. Like, you need to watch out. Like, we cannot allow this to happen. And they would always tell Oscar that in his close calls. And then here's Lando bumping into his teammate, and McLaren has not said a thing. They have not scolded him for that. They have not said like, hey, you got to watch out for your teammate. They never did that. And I think that's why I say they prefer Lando, because we've seen them with Oscar, who has nearly hit his teammate, and he has gotten reprimanded, like scolded on the team radio, while with Lando, it's like, okay, he did actually hit his teammate. This is the second time he has hit his teammate, mind you. And they have not been like, hey, you need to watch out. You need to do better. Like, what are like Papaya Rules? You know that. And I think that's the bigger thing for me. And I mean, I think Papaya Rules are just literally just vibes, and there actually is no, it's not written down anywhere. It's just based off vibes.
It's definitely not written down.
If it did exist, guess who's not going to follow it? Oscar Piastri, because at this point he's like, all right, we got the constructors, we got the team goal. I'm in it for me now. And remember, Oscar's manager is Mark Webber, who famously had to deal with a teammate that had preference over him, and that teammate would be able to get away with a lot more. And Mark Webber's going to look and be like, yeah, don't let that happen to me.
Look, we've even in this weekend, Lando was involved in multiple things, right? Not just the race, but also in qualifying, to the point where Max was like, Max, you kind of, throttled back there at the end to try, instead of trying to go after George. And he goes, I kind of had to, because, an orange car was slowing me down. And he goes, orange car? And he points at Oscar. He's like, it wasn't Oscar. I'll leave it at that, right? Lando was obviously doing that as well. So it's, again, the stewards didn't talk about that. The stewards didn't talk about the bumping incident. Max is, like you said, Andre, he was ahead, so he didn't have to crash out about it because he didn't lose any position. But if he did, he absolutely would have been. He probably would have driven straight to the steward's paddock and be like, I'm sorry, you're going to deal with this right now, because that's what he does too. But I think with Oscar, I think someone said afterwards that Oscar and Lewis had a little bit of a chat, and they said, Lewis, what you've been in this position before where you're kind of battling a teammate. What have you kind of talked with Oscar? He said, stop giving away your position, because every single time it has been Oscar's had to been asked to give it back. It was the pit stop incident this week, where basically they're like, okay, this happened to me. When he's trying to catch Lando, like you said, Andre, when he's trying to catch Lando, it's always like, hey, don't run into Lando. But when Lando's doing this, go all the way back to week 1, where Lando caused him to spin out and lose out on the podium when he was leading the race that no Australian has ever won. Like, those are little things that have started all season. It was last year too, when Lando was going for it, and he was ahead in points of Oscar. They were kind of telling Oscar to throttle back and let Lando pass him, so that, because it was about the Drivers' Championship and it was about the Constructors, right? Like, they always have these little excuses. And so I feel like we are witnessing Oscar's going to do one of two things. He's going to shut them out, and he's going to run his race and see, okay, they're not going to help me anymore, so let me just try and go for it on my own. Or he's going to go full on Joker and blow this whole thing up. And it's going to be, if I can't do this, then Lando's not getting it either. And so I don't know where he's at, but there are telltale signs from yesterday that he is not happy. And the fact that as the leader in the Drivers' Championship, he is not getting the respect from his own team, that leads me to believe that the Joker may not be there, but is certainly brewing.
That's the part for me.
Oscar villain origin story. where this is how it starts.
That right there, Donald, is the part for me. This man has been leading the Drivers' Championship for a long time now. What did they tell Lando last season when even he was not leading the championship, but trying to chase down Max in what would have been an unprecedented kind of turnaround? They said, hey, Lando, you're going to need Oscar. They have never told Oscar you're going to need Lando. They've never flipped that this season when Oscar has been, and you've got 6 races left. He has a lead. Max is charging that Red Bull. Suddenly looks like a much better car. And we also know what Max can do when he puts it in a really difficult position in front of the McLarens. It's really hard to pass him, especially at certain tracks. Like, they've never really given the same deference to, and again, like, yes, last year Oscar was nowhere close to Lando, so the dynamic is different, but you have a driver leading the championship. It's kind of important to acknowledge that fact, and they don't seem to ever want to acknowledge that with these rules or anything else. It's always kind of Oscar making the concession, and this is where, yeah, I'm with you, Deepti. This feels like Oscar or villain origin story, because not only was there that, post-race, it feels like, they won the Constructors. They only needed 13 points. Obviously, both cars finished in the top 5. So, yeah, they had plenty more points. They locked it up. They secured it. They were celebrating. And Zach Brown comes on the radio to tell Oscar, hey, congratulations, great job, thank you. And then gets that click. Radio just disconnects, looks rough. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes these F1 accounts, there are so many of them, I don't know if some are legit, because some talk absolute nonsense. Some are like, Colapinto is going to drive for Mercedes next year. And it's like, stop. Get out of my face. I blocked those. But so I didn't know. But this one seemed legit. And then, of course, though we saw from the race that there were reasons for Oscar being left out of the celebration that happened post-race, because Lando was on the podium. He was doing podium duties, whereas Oscar was not. So he went over to the little driver's zone where they talk to the journalists and all that. and Lando was heading over there and kind of got like pushed into the celebration. They ended up celebrating the Constructors Championship with just Lando Norris and not Oscar Piastri.
Who is leading the Drivers' Championship.
Right.
And a healthy lead, not by like a point or two. It's like 22 points with 6 races to go. What are they doing?
I will say also the media person from McLaren that was with Lando, with Oscar, as he kind of turns at the TV and sees the rest of the team celebrating, she kind of looks too and is like, you can see her on her phone just like, oh no. Y'all left him out and me. I didn't ask for this. Nuh-uh. Let me type something.
You would think there would have been one person that would have looked around and been like, where's Oscar, by the way? Like, hold on.
Yeah.
Like,
Someone.
where is he?
Is that they didn't want either of the drivers. They just happened to see Lando and pass by. But I'm like,
Which makes
that's
it look
kinda
worse.
Yeah. It's
Favorite
kinda
child on the lookout.
But my thing is, well, first of all, this incident could have gone much worse because when Lando hit Oscar, it's a very tight space. Oscar was so close to hitting the wall, and he could have been out completely. Lando finished P3, so they would have still won constructors anyway. But it seems to me that all the Papaya Rules stuff was just okay. Constructors above all, which fair. They want the money, they want that title. But now that they've locked it up, I don't know where it's going to go from here. Like, Drivers' Championship is still, it's not Oscars. I mean, it's Oscars to lose, but are they going to still try to get Lando his first championship? Are they going to still try to favor him and do that? Or is it now just, okay, both of you are separate drivers now, like we did our thing as a team, now just go and race. And so I think that dynamic will be interesting to see how they go with the last 6 races.
I'll tell you one thing. If I'm Oscar, I ain't waiting to see how they tell me it's going to go. I'm going to tell y'all how it's going to go. I'm for myself right now. There's 6 races left. I have a 20-something point lead in the Drivers' Championship. I don't know what our car is going to be, how competitive anything's going to be on the grid next season. I don't know if we're going to be here, if this is like a Red Bull early days or Mercedes early days, or we can just run up multiple, like we're always going to have a dominant car for at least half a decade, if not longer. I don't know. Don't know what's going to happen. But I can tell you this. I got more points than anybody with 6 races left. I'm going to be about me. And I want to see him do that because I think this weekend showed him that I don't know if he can rely on the team to back him to become a driver's champion. I think he's going to have to do it himself.
I think the other part of it is they still might have to do this Papaya Rules because Max is still there. Like, it'd be one thing if it was just those two like it was early in the season. Now, Max is just close enough that he is a threat. Like, he could, like, it's not, I wouldn't say like Max is going to win the championship, but it's not out of the realm of possibility with 6 races left that he can go win, 5 of the races or get second consistently. Like, that's also the other part of it is you can't screw around because now you got Max right there. And if Max somehow wins that title, not only is that going to ruin, it's going to look bad completely, where it's like you had a driver that was ahead and you threw it all away so that you can get another driver a chance who had his chance last year and didn't do anything. He did not capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm.
And this, like the gap between Lando and Max is closer now than it was last year when Lando started his comeback to the point where, we first started this pod, we're like, yo, there's a legit chance that Lando can catch him. He obviously didn't, but he came quite close. That gap is closer. So the fact that if he's going to be trying to focus on sabotaging Oscar's thinking that, oh, I'm next, he's going to look past him and see, just like we've seen so many times, Max blow on by him. And if they fumble this, like, this is like an unforgivable thing. Like they will have to have a decision in the offseason about, okay, we need to split these drivers up because there's no way they would be able to coexist with each other or with the team.
Or Oscar says, "After this, I'm out." Like,
he might. If
Oscar's more likely to say,
anyway.
"Screw this."
Right. Mm-hmm. Kyle, George ain't signed yet. Would you rather have George Russell or Oscar Piastri?
I mean, I'd take Oscar.
I don't think. But here's the thing: I don't think George. Where is he going to go? Like, George is a good enough driver that the only open spots left now are what? Red Bull as a second seat. Ain't nobody want to do that.
All I'm
McLaren
saying
as
is,
a second seat.
Yeah.
Now that's like that's arguably that might be the worst seat in Formula One right now. Right? Like at least the Red Bull too. Like we don't really care about it anymore. Like
At
we just
least
kind
they
of
know.
sit off to the side. Yeah, at least they know what's up. But like unless like that causes some sort of chain reaction where all these contracts get lost. You were signed with us next year, but we can't find the paperwork, so we're just going to go ahead and pull George. Like, unless that happens, there's only a couple places that he can go, and I think that's where this could be a severance type of deal, where they're like, "Hey, we're just going to have to leave this situation for whatever that may be," and Oscar becomes the 1 and 1A free agent on the market. So it's going to be difficult, but this would be an unconscionable mistake if they fumble this drivers' championship away for Oscar. Not if Oscar like crashes and stuff like that, but if he does his driving and still loses this championship, he will not be in McLaren next year. That's my prediction.
I'm just saying, Ferrari was completely willing to let Carlos Sainz go so they can get Lewis Hamilton. Teams will cut a driver if they know there's a better one out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is why I'm hoping that this weekend was rest in peace, Papaya Rules, 2024 to 2025. Done. No more. I don't want to hear no more Papaya Rules. I will say, I think it was admirable what they were trying to do. But as things got tight, and as we talked about on this podcast, it's all good and fun and games when it's just you two out in front. When you introduce a third driver to that, not on your team, you've got a problem now. You can't control that. That's an uncontrollable element that you can't do anything about that. So Max starts winning races. George is now winning races, or at least a race. He's won. That's a second win. He won in Canada. But like now at the crunch time of the championship, only 6 races to go. You don't know who's going to win. Could be a Mercedes. Because honestly, in qualifying, Kimi Antonelli was faster than George for the first few goes. So like Kimi and that Mercedes can maybe get back on the podium. It would be great to see him back on a podium. Yeah, obviously I have Max in the Red Bull. I ain't even gonna talk about Ferrari, but just saying, like they can't control it anymore, and so they're just gonna have to let it play out and let it be what it's going to be. Because if they don't, I agree with y'all. Like there is a chance that in 2026 there is a massive shakeup in driver lineup and Piastri is out.
There's also the added element is not just Max, but the fact that recently in these last few races we have seen some outlier in the podium, and those are crucial points that they're not getting as individuals. Yeah. So it's always like we've had Williams, we've had not Haas, Sauber, right? Like
Sauber, we had Racing Bulls.
Racing Bulls, we have these outliers where like, oh wow, that's great for that particular team, but now we're talking about it being damaging for Oscar and Orlando, and they can't be losing points to each other, but they really can't be losing points to people in the grid that aren't going to factor into the final standings.
All right, y'all. I have a question, and I want to direct this question at Kyle. Kyle, where the hell that come from Mercedes? We thought the entire time they were supposed to struggle with like warm temperatures. This is one of the hottest rates. We talked about it in the preview. Drivers lose like 900 pounds when they come here. They sweat so much. It's so grueling now. It was cooler than it usually is, but cooler with that humidity doesn't mean it was like 60 degrees. It was still in the 80s. It was still high humidity. And Mercedes, brilliant. What happened?
I wish I could give you an answer because I don't even know. Like I saw George on pole, I was like, "What do you mean?" Like I was baffled. I was shocked. Obviously good for him, good for me as the resident Mercedes fan, more or less. I did not see it coming. Hell, George didn't even see it coming.
They didn't even know.
This is what kills me about Mercedes. Every time they're good, we're like, I don't know what happened.
They were all like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I don't think anyone expected it. So, I mean, good on George. Hell, Kimi Antonelli had a good race as well. So I have no clue. Whatever they did for the setup, it worked. That's the only, it had to be the setup because as we know, they don't do well in the hot. And I'm shocked.
I think it's great.
The rain, you said?
No, I just think the whole thing is great, right? Like
Oh, okay.
the fact that we talked about how they mess up their tires every 5 laps when it's above 65 degrees, it feels like. And he had a lead so wide after 5 laps that it didn't matter what tires he was on. He could have been on the wet tires and would have still been just destroying everybody because
Well,
that's
I
how
don't know
far
about
ahead
that,
he
but,
was. I gotta get the wets in there somehow.
The emotional support wet
The
tires.
emotional support. They're never going to use them.
Yeah, I truly am baffled by that, and it still just cracks me up how every single time they did it in Canada. I mean, Canada, it was cooler, so they expected to be good, but still they didn't know they would be that good, and so every
Yeah.
single time Mercedes is good, they're like, "Hey, we don't know what happened." I'm like, "Y'all get paid a lot of money to understand your car. They have all the dynamics, and every single time they are on the podium, they're like, "Hey, we don't know how that happened."
Literally, I
What
think in
your
his
thoughts on
post race.
Mercedes, please?
No, I think in his post race interview, George literally was like, "Yeah, we didn't think we'd be good this weekend, but here we are." Like, um, I don't know. They've consistently been there. Like, what are they second in constructors now? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so it's not like they've done poorly, but it's just like consistently inconsistent because we don't know how they're going to be. They don't know how they're going to do. Like, we think we find a pattern of like, yeah, cooler temperatures are better for them, and then something like this happens. So, it's just you can't explain it, and it's just sometimes I don't know. Maybe like George had said 2 years ago, he got really unlucky, and so this was just making up for that. And maybe it was just part of like it was luck, right? It's like some of it where it's just like I had one good qualifying. I had a good qualifying, and like that on this track, that's really important. And so it just happened. But yeah, it's weird. I have no explanation. I don't know what to think of Mercedes except
I like
that
how
you
he's
can't.
acting like his like unfortunate luck was like something out of his control. My guy, you crashed. Like that was on you. You caused that crash. No one did anything. You lost control.
George is so funny when he does stuff like that because he's never like, it was me. It was just like, oh man, had
It's
some
like,
really
oh,
bad luck
yeah.
here. I was like, yeah, the bad luck was driving poorly. I don't understand what you're talking about. Deepti, I do love the explanation though. It's like the only constants in life are change and Mercedes not understanding their car. Like that, we got to update the cliche because it doesn't make it like this has been multiple years now, by the way, where this happens. Like sometimes last season you could say like Silverstone, they were going to be good. Like that's one of the, like, it's a home track. They're very, very good. They're like, this is what they want to do. But like every other time they had no, like the Spa thing. Weird. And in this race, talk about qualifying. George did that twice. He put up two,
Yeah.
two of the fastest laps in qualifying were done in Q3 and done by George Russell.
Yeah.
And Max can cry about Lando being 3-4 seconds away going into the pits, but he was not getting pole. That like George has too much of a lead for him. So I get him, and honestly, it goes back to me being like, I'm remember just last pod when I was like, I'm softening on Max, and then he goes and has a weekend like this where he's complaining about another car going into the pit seconds ahead of him. My guy,
We're trying to help you.
right? Like, can you not? This is the kind of stuff that I was talking about. Stop doing this stuff.
I will say real quick, you mentioned the fast laps that George Russell had, especially during qualifying. I believe his qualifying lap in Q3 was the fastest lap ever ran at Singapore. And it held for not even 24 hours because Lewis Hamilton set the record during the race. But that just tells you how fast this was. Yeah. And the fact that we're looking like, oh, in a track that's normally fast, in a race that was the fastest race ever, you're not looking at the top expecting to see a Mercedes there. You're looking at the top to see a McLaren or maybe a Max or, something like that. But the fact that George was able to do that, and especially considering last year where man was so dehydrated last year that he had a panic attack after the race.
That was rough.
That's how bad he was drained. And so I think also the fact that it was such an easy race allowed him to kind of stay cool throughout the whole thing. There was not a lot of drama for him. He just kind of was able to go on a nice little Sunday evening stroll through Marina Bay Sands and enjoy the nice scenery while winning a race. I'm sure he would love for all those races to be like that, but it's especially surprising that it's coming in Singapore for him.
Yeah, no doubt. I do want to talk about just one more team before we move on to like accountability corner and look at our previous predictions. And we also have to award our Zoomy and Gloomy boys. We stopped predicting those, so we want to do them fresh on this episode without just being like, "Yep, got that right." Like we want to go ahead and dive into it, which might allow us to cover more of what actually happened in the race. So I do want to make sure we have time for that. But Deepti is here. And I do apologize that we missed doing this podcast when Williams was on the podium. However, Williams had a rough weekend. They were disqualified for cheating. Had a bit of a too wide of a gap in their wing when it came to DRS. So both of them were disqualified from qualifying. But it does seem like Carlos Sainz, as I mentioned, we didn't see any of it, but he did go from P18 to P10 in the race, so that is promising. But Deepti, I must ask you, explain Williams cheating. Why your boys
André.
cheating?
No, you've asked me two questions I can't answer now. I don't know why they try and cheat. I mean, this is one thing that like it. Even James Vowles in a statement later, he was like, "Oh, I don't know how it went through all our checks and everything. Like, yeah, it's on us. We'll take the fact that he's like, yeah, we'll take the what's it called, punishment, and the disqualification. They knew what they were doing. They absolutely knew what they were doing, and they thought they would get away with it. But no, it's like it can't go through. I'm sure you have so many checks on, and you know the rules down to literally the millimeter that you can have it, like whatever the width and gap is supposed to be. So they just tried to get it passed in there, and it didn't work for them. And I'm actually like, don't do it. Don't cheat. Like, and especially seeing Carlos go from P18 to P10, who knows how well he could have done and like gotten to the points and whatever if they started where they qualified. And so that's really disappointing. And like, yeah, I don't have anything more to say except it's almost like if you're gonna cheat, like do it wholeheartedly. Don't try to like stand back on it. Just like say it with your whole chest, like, yeah, we tried, but we got caught. Like, done.
Like if this was Ferrari that said that or Alpine, I would believe them. They're like, yeah, we did try all the checks. We just dropped the ball. Okay, maybe not
We
Alpine.
just used the wrong ruler.
No. Actually not Alpine because Briatore is still there. But if Ferrari had said we did our checks and it somehow slipped through, I'd believe that. This is James Vowles. That man follows everything with a fine-tooth comb.
I will say, like, James Vowles does great puppy dog face because he was so like anytime your dog does something or dog does something bad and you don't even got to say nothing, they just know immediately when you look at them. Like you discover the mess they made and then you look at them. That was James Vowles. He was just like, "Oh, don't yell at me."
Their statement was the longest "see what happened" was that I had seen in a long time. That could have been. That could have been a Vine. And that's how short it should have been. See, like we messed up. That's our bad. Thank you. God bless you. Good night. Instead, they said, see what happened was, we had the check-ins accounts, right? And they had to set check-in and savings and we had to transfer.
We like calibrated the thing wrong and
3 business days. And then see, you were there where you saw the heat, right? You see the heat and it messes up and I was sweating and
the molecular properties. And so then you don't really
because
know
of that,
how to judge that.
Maybe it expands
and then it was a cool night, right? Like, and then the lights, there was a lot of lights in the paddock. And then I saw the people in the swimming pool. They waved hi and I waved back and I couldn't hear him. So I tried to drive over. See, that's basically what he was saying. And I was like, at the end of this, like, so you cheated. Okay, cool.
So
Thanks for that. Yeah.
You know what? It's funny that you say that because when I saw the statement, I really hit the like, happy for you or sad that happened. I ain't reading all that. Like, I really hit that. And then I had to go back and read it because I was like, what? Like when I realized like what happened and what they got punished for, I was like, well, I need to go read what all these words are for. Like why did they
why is this post 2 graphics?
Statement?
Why? Why are there 2 graphics? You're not translating this. Right. Why is this one whole statement?
That was hilarious. Okay. We do have to get out of here, but so I want to do accountability corner real quick. So we're gonna take a quick break and then get into accountability corner where we will drop our Zoomy and Gloomy boys. Be right back. Okay, here we go. Accountability corner. This is gonna be somewhat quick because we got a few minutes before we got to get out of here. But I want to start with podium predictions. Kyle, you said Oscar, Max, and Charles.
I got second.
You did. Donald, you said Oscar, Max, and Lando.
I got second.
Yep, not bad.
And third.
And third.
Yeah, and third. I said Oscar, Max, and Lando as well. Deepti, you said Max, Lando, and George.
I got all three. I didn't forget about George.
You did
Not in
not.
the right order, but I still got the three people on the podium.
Right.
The dyslexic
Yeah.
accountability corner.
Exactly. You know, it's just a little, just a couple move this over here, that over here, carry the two. Megan, unfortunately, she went to Ferrari with hers as usual. Oscar, Lewis, and Charles. Nope. So constructor scrap. We also predict the most points and the least points, excluding McLaren, who already has the Constructors Championship, and excluding who already has the least amount of points, which would be Alpine. So you can't choose either one of those. Kyle, you said Ferrari, most points. You said least points, Haas.
Yeah, I was off. Shout out Ollie. Good job on him. Good job.
Oh, man, listen.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Donald, you had Mercedes, and then you had least points, Aston Martin.
I got one of them.
You did.
And
You did.
I'm not mad at Alonso getting points. So
Yeah,
there we go.
fair. I said Red Bull and Haas. I was also very wrong. Deepti, you also said Red Bull and Haas.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all good. And Megan said Ferrari and Aston Martin. Most points Ferrari, least points Aston Martin. That is also incorrect. Oh, yes, Zoomy and Gloomy Boy. Here we go. Kyle, please, because I wanted to talk about this. I'm so glad this is your Zoomy Boy.
Yeah,
Slash
so
girl.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not a Zoomy boy, it's a Zoomy girl. It's Leah Block. Shout out to her. She got her first win. She got her first goal over the weekend. She won the reverse grid race, so that is pretty impressive to see. Anyone that listened to our F1 Academy review, we were very much into Leah Block's story, and she was someone that you wanted to root for. So to see her get her first win, that is pretty awesome. And all of a sudden now we have another tight battle for the championship with Maivig also winning, which cut her deficit with Dorian Pine down to 20 points or something. So yeah, but shout out Leah Block. She deserves a Zoomy.
For sure.
Yeah, I think following her story was so cool because she came from rally driving, and you could see the first year she was in F1 Academy, she was sliding that thing. She was drifting it all over the place, and it was you got to be more precise with the open wheel F1 type car. You cannot be sliding around like that. And she's developed over at least even that year, and so it's so cool to see her win a race.
And also shout out to Williams for the patience, right? Because it could have been very easy to be look, you have cost us a lot of money in tires last year, because that was kind of what they were focusing on. And for her to steadily continue to improve and for them to believe in that improvement, look where it's gotten her.
Yeah.
I mean, Leah could have been look, you had Franco Colapinto and Logan Sargent driving around last year, and you're going to come to me about costs?
I know, right? You won't come to me about these little tires that I got on these cars? Get out
You
of here.
have emotional support tires. What do you mean?
Donald, let's do your Zoomy.
Oh, wait, I forgot to get my Gloomy.
No, it's fine. We'll do Zoomies first, and then we'll
Okay,
do Gloomies
deal.
at the end. So, Donald, you're Zoomy boy.
It's George. I ain't forget about you, George.
I mean, we did. It's fine. Deepti, you're a Zoomy boy.
I went with Carlos as for both last race and this race. I would go with Carlos just because, we just mentioned, he made up a lot of places on a track that's hard to overtake on, and he probably could have done better if they qualified or had the correct rear wing.
True. My Zoomy boy is Ollie Behrman. He was really good this weekend, and he pulled off one of the nicest overtakes you will see at Singapore. Oh my God, that was so sweet. I really hope he said ciao too. I ever since they broadcast that he said that, he's been a little bit more calm on the radio. I hope he hit a ciao on that one, because that was smooth. And he got points. He finished ninth, so loved his performance. Okay, let's do our Gloomy boys. Kyle, back to you.
I at first had McLaren's pit crew because once again they had a horrible start, but I'm actually going to give it to the social media admin for McLaren, because you look at those comments after the celebration and boy are people not happy with McLaren, and I would not want to be the social media person having to deal with that, because they're probably I didn't do anything Don't yell at me. So I will say the gloomy person is McLaren's social media admin.
Fair enough. Donald, your gloomy boy.
It's Oscar, because for a guy who was leading the drivers and who finished fourth and his team claimed the constructors, he had the worst week possible.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a tough week for like a champion who didn't crash out of a race. Like he still finished, picked up decent points, but like all these other things happening, no good.
It was Milton. It's Milton in Office Space. Didn't even get the piece of cake. Like just sitting there, gonna set the building on fire.
Tough. Deepti, your gloomy boy.
Gloomy. I just put Alonso, but really I just mean Alonso's whole team because Fernando, he was doing really well. He also overtook a lot of people, but was like fighting with Hajar for a little bit. Then he had that 9.2 second pit stop. So like part of it is Alonso's pit crew, and I think it was the front left or front right wing. Something was up with that, the gun on that. And then Alonso's like engineer, he was like getting all sassy Fernando on the radio, and so it's just the whole team. Aston Martin, even Stroll was like, obviously he always never has, or always never. He never has a good race weekend. But he was also being really sassy to his engineer. So everyone in the Aston Martin garage gets my gloomy boys and girls.
Yeah, Fernando saying he's gonna disconnect the radio was just a top line. That dude is just so. If I was his race engineer, I'd quit. Like I'm not dealing with you. My gloomy boy. I'm sticking with Aston Martin. You almost spoiled me, but it is Stroll. Because one, if you're gonna be like the fail son of the billionaire who's only on the team because your dad owns the team, change your voice. Why does your voice sound like that? They told him like what they say, like somebody ahead of him has like 6 laps old, like or like 30 something old,
30 lap old tires.
Yeah, tire, and he's like, my tires feel like they're 100 laps old. Shut up. I can't stand his whiny ass.
And he's holding everyone up, and I'm like, well, he's defending pretty well considering how bad his tires are. But at the same time, I'm just like, he does need a different voice. Like, I don't know. Like, when I look at Lance Stroll, that's not the voice I would think.
No. He
sounds like
Lou Ferrigno. And then he sounds like Lou Ferrigno on like helium. It's bad.
Or the opposing mayor from Paw Patrol. That's who his voice reminds me of. I'm forgetting his name, but yeah.
Look, I was dying during the broadcast because when there was a point where they're like, oh, and Lance Stroll is trying to hold his own as he's about to be lapped by George, and they're like, well, he's kind of holding his own out there. Oh no, wait, nope. George has passed him, and it was just like very subtle. Like they're like, oh, he's holding his. He's like he's defending against not being lapped, and it lasted like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
that was his race.
If we had more time, we'd also talk about blue flags and all of that because there were some interesting conversations and interesting things that happened with that. But we are out of time. We will be back. There is a break between the next race, which I believe is COTA.
Do we?
It is
of the Americas. Sweet. So this seems like a perfect time to drop our preview for 2026. We went through the regulations deeply. I realize I talk like the president. My bad. We went through the regulations with a lot of thoroughness and analysis because engine changes and aero changes are coming. And so we're going to split those up into 2 parts and drop those so that you can kind of get prepared for what's going to happen in 2026. So we'll drop that during this break. But for Deepti and Kyle and Donald, I'm Andre. We'll talk to you soon. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.